You're welcome back to the Youth Thrive program cohort 2, and this is week 3. We will be learning responsive web design. So for our Saturday's class, we're going to learn the following. What is responsive website? What is a responsive website? Some responsive web design principles. So what is a responsive website? A responsive website seamlessly adapts to different screen sizes, ensuring optimal user experience across devices such as desktops, laptops, tablets, and smartphone. So just to show you an example, so if we go to our Figma design, the one I'm using to teach you, you notice this Figma design has two views. We have the desktop view and we have the mobile view. So this is what a responsive website looks like. So when you access it with a desktop or a large screen, it will show in this format nicely from the nav bar to the footer. But if you happen to access the website using a smartphone, it's going to show in this format. So you see, the user experience is not lost. Now this is the Figma design, and you know our job as front-end developer is to convert this to a working website. So here is a working website. See, so you see from the nav bar down to the footer section. So you see all functionalities are working. So if you click here, it takes you to the about me. So if you click on contact, it takes me here. So but that is not what we want to watch out now. Want to watch out for. So want to watch out for the responsiveness. So I'm going to enter the developers tools. So you notice if I should send this right away to Netflix 5x, so you notice this is how the website will show. So you see it shows nicely, and I can access all the web contents. So do you notice what the design, how responsive this website is? So you notice just the way it was meant to show based on the Figma design, which is like the architectural plan of a website. You see the same structure. So this is what a responsive website looks like. So I've just shown you the two views, the desktop and the mobile view. So let's look at the responsive part. So this is the desktop part, but notice what happens as I shrink the page. You notice some adjustment. You notice some adjustment gradually until it enters the responsive mode. So you see the definition that about a responsive website. It says a responsive website seamlessly, so it doesn't have to stop it, but seamlessly adapts to different screen sizes, ensuring optimal user experience across devices. So that is what we are seeing here. So I'm going to start by teaching you some of the principles of this responsive website. So let's begin. So some responsive web design principles. So the first one is use responsive friendly units like percentage, view width, view height, EM and REM. Now what is the difference between EM and REM? EM is relative to the parent's element font size. So if you wish to scale the element size based on its parent element, use EM. Rem is relative to the root, that is the HTML font size. So if you wish to scale the elements size based on the root size, no matter what the parent size is, use the rem. So let's begin testing each of these principles here. So I'm going to my VS Code now. So let's have a box. So dot responsive one. So inside that I want dot box. So if I hit enter, I'll have this. So let's say this is our markup. Now let's look at the CSS. I've already connected the CSS. Excuse me. So by the way, I'm going to give this dot responsive one dot box. So that box, I want to give it a width, so a fixed width of, let's say, 500 pixel, then a height of 500 pixel, then to see this box, we need to give it a border. So border 2 pixel solid red. So if I view on my screen here, I'm going to have this box like this. So let's make this width close to 100%. So let's do that so that we'll begin to see the responsive part of it. So I'm going to add this to 1200. So let's see if that's I think I changed that on the height. So 1200. Okay, so we have something that looks like this. So now let's move to our responsive, that is the dev mode, to test this out. So now you notice on a big screen like this, there is no overflow, so the page is showing nicely. But notice what happens as I shrink the screen. So do you notice there is an overflow now? So you see it's not responsive friendly, so there's an overflow. And if I remove this from here, you notice the scroll bar comes here. So that means using a static unit like the pixel is not responsive friendly. So the slide here says we should use responsive friendly unit like the percentage. So let's see what happens when we change this width to a percentage. So the full width is 100%. So if I do this now, go back to my desktop, notice as I drag, notice it's just following closely. So you see it's responsive friendly. So that's nice. So the next principle is to use our view width. So I'm going to shift port arrow up, comment this. So I'm going to use this as 99 view width, which is close to 100%. So this one is also responsive friendly. So I'm going to remove that percent So if I go to my browser, okay, I think let me use 98. 98 is close to 100%. So you notice this is close to 100%, but notice what happens when I drag the screen. You notice just like the percentage, there is no overflow here, so it's responsive friendly. So for width, the responsive friendly units are the percentage and view width. Then the height, the view height is also responsive friendly, but there's not much of an issue when you're working with height. So but if I don't want to use this 500 pixel, I can use maybe 50 view height, which is like half of the available screen. So if I do that, I'll have something like this. Then 100 view height means the full available screen that you're seeing without a scroll bar. So why am I having a scroll bar? Because I've not reset the page. So this was what I was meant to do. Remember when we learned about CSS selectors? So I said we use this global selector to reset. So padding should be 0 pixel. The margin should be 0 pixel. So by this we are removing all the default settings. Then the box sizing, border box. So recall in our previous classes I've explained all of this. So now I've reset the page, and let's see if there is an overflow. So you see there is no overflow. So that means 100 view height is the height of the available screen, so from top to bottom here. So but the view height is not responsive friendly when it comes to height, but it's kind of like it works better than the percentage. So if you add 100, let's see, if you add 100%, don't think it will stretch up to that point. See, doesn't stretch. So the 100 view height works just like the 100 percentage works for full width of the screen. So the 100 view height works for the view height of the screen. So that means one view height is like 1%. Okay, that is it for that. So the next thing we want to look at is the difference between rem and em. So what is the difference between rem and em? So we say that em is relative to the parent's font size. So let's look at that. So if I come down here and put my dot responsive one and give it a font size of 1 REM, then I come here, I give this a font size of 2 REM. So let's add some text inside that box. So save this. So I'm going to add some lorem 12 Z to break that. So if I save, I'm going to have this. Now watch what happens when I this was for EM, so this is going to be EM, this is going to be EM. So let's see. Now watch what happens when I reduce this to 0.5. So you see, as I reduce it to 0.5, you notice the box on reduces. So just to be sure that there's a box here, so if I do my shift alt arrow up and move this one up, then let's give this one a border of purple, and let's say a little padding of 10 pixels. So you notice that this responsive one is the parent of the box. So now you are going to see the difference. So there's a little space there, so you notice this is the big box. That is that. So to remove that padding, I have to make my padding top and right 10%. Then this one should be 10 pixels. This one should be 0 pixel. So that we can have. So you notice there's a space here. So you see the text here is reducing based on the font size of the parent. So if I increase this to 1.5, so you notice this is going to increase. So a better way to understand this is this: whatever font size the parent container has, just multiply it by 2. So you notice if you multiply 1.5 by 2, this is going to give like 3 rem. So if I remove this, you see what 2 rem look like. 2 rem looks like this, but let me give that 3 rem. So you notice what 3 rem looks like. So just like what we are having when we activated this. So that is a nice way for you to understand that. So whatever the parent font size is going to multiply with whatever it is here, and that is why it says that here that if you wish to scale the element size based on its parent, you use what? EM. Okay, so that is for EM. So what about the rem? So the rem is relative to the root tag, which is the HTML. So I'm going to add a font size of 1 ROEM. So now you notice, because I added a font size here, and font size is a CSS rule or CSS property that can be inherited. So by default, if I don't add a font size to any tag, it will have the default font size of 1 rem. So notice that if I go to my page, there is no immediate difference because the EM is related to the immediate parent. So what I'm going to do now is to reduce this height to, let's say, 10 VH. So let's see if there's an overflow. So there is an overflow. So let's make it 40. So later in this video we are going to learn how to fix that, but for now we are working with understanding the units. So now you see what 40 VH looks like. Then now let's go back to our HTML, add another markup. Let's say add inside this box here, I'll add dots rem. So I'm going to give it a font size. So I'm going to add lorem. Okay, let me just put a meaningful text. So this text font size is relative to the HTML font size. So if I save this and go to my browser this is what I'll see. You will notice this is the font size that does not affect, because this one is not relative to the immediate parent. So what I'm going to do now is to target this one. So dot responsive one space dot rem. So if I give it a font size of 1.5 rem, you notice this is when it's going to increase a little. But notice what happens when I reduce this to 0.5. So you notice this reduces, but so also this also reduces. Okay, so notice what happens when I increase this to 2.5. So you will notice the increase. So let's see what happens when I move this guy out of this responsive one. So if I do that, that means I need to remove this. So if I do that, notice the outcome still remains the same. So here I have my font size 2.5. So you notice if you multiply this, by default is 2.5, so it's going to be very, very large. So that is it for the rem and em. So one rem looks like this. See the default. So that is that. So from what we have done, you notice that increasing that of the root element also has an effect on this, because this is the parent and font size is inherited, is a CSS rule that can be inherited. So if I move this now, so actually not that. So if I make this responsive one space this, and I move it back, and let me move this back to where it was. So notice what happens when, so you see everything looks the same, but notice what happens when I increase the font size of the immediate parent here. So I increase this to 2. So you notice the em increases, but that of the rem still remains the same. So you see, that is the main point. It's only when I increase this to like 2, which is the root element, that is when this one here is going to increase. So this is how you understand programming, by playing around with some basic principles to see how it works. So we're going to leave this as their default. So I'm going to leave this at 1, and let's see. Okay, so I'll leave this at 1.5 still. Okay, so we have that. So the next responsive principle is use fluid layout. Now when using fluid layout, we are going to use max width instead of width and mean height instead of height. So back to this our example here. So if I go to my Figma design, so you notice for this page, so for the full width of this page according to the Figma design, if I click here, go to my properties panel, close this. If I click here, I'm going to notice that the width is 1920. So notice what will happen if I add that as the default width of the box. So let's say of the parent box. So the parent box, let's say we'll make it the width should be 1920 pixel. So notice what will happen. So if I do that, go to my as output, you notice I have an overflow. So you see, so how do we stop this without using percentage? So that is what we just discussed now. So we use max width. So max width. So if I go back to my screen, I'm going to see that it's now behaving just like the percentage. So what is actually happening here? So the max width is the maximum width that you want the container to stretch to. But if the available width of the device does not permit that, then it should adjust to fit the available width. So it's kind of responsive friendly. Whereas the width is like you're telling the container, always make sure you remain at this width at all screen sizes. And that is why when we put a width that is bigger than the available width, we have an overflow, and that is not responsive friendly. So that is for the max width. Now what about the mean height? So to create a scenario that will help us solve or understand that, so let me create a paragraph here. So big tag, so lorem 500. So hit enter. So this is quite big. So notice what happens. The text here has grown and it's too big. So I think I should use lorem 200. Enter. So you notice it's still quite big. There's still quite an overflow there. So how do I tell the height here to adjust to fit or to accommodate this overflow? So it's simple. We add mean height. So go to our CSS here to the box. So remember it's a height of 40 VH. So mean height. So by the time we add that mean height, you notice it's not responsive friendly. So as soon as I add more content, it will adjust on its own. So if you're working with Figma, and for a parent container just like the responsive one, you always use the mean height, because by the time you're building the responsive part, the height of the desktop will not be enough for the content unless you plan to hide the content. So for width, you use the max width, but if you don't want to use the max width, you can use 100%. So that is it for this one. So the next one is use flexible images. So for the flexible image, we need to work with the max width and percentage. So let's create the markup for that. So I'll go down to my responsive, then I'm going to put this as dot flexible image. So in it, I want to have an image tag. So inside it I want to load an image. So I already have some images here. So dot and / images user, then auth user image excuse me. So if I save this, go to my browser, I'll have this. But I'm noticing something, the image is already behaving. So let me change this to just flexible. There's a class conflict somewhere. So now you notice there is an overflow here. Notice there's an overflow, and the more I shrink, the more the overflow. So how do we make this flexible? So to make this flexible, there are two things we need to do in our CSS. First of all, we are going to make the parent container. So let me comment flexible image. So we are going to make the parent container to have a max width. So dot flexible, so put max width of 920 pixel. So that is for that. Then we'll give it a margin, top and bottom 2 rem, left and right, left and right 0 rem. So just to make this visible, let's add a border of 2 pixels, solid dark blue. So if I do this, notice what I see on my browser. So notice I'm seeing this here. So you see the image is overflowing a great deal. So the next fix for us is to target the image inside the flexible. So dot flexible img, then the width of the image, I want it to be 100%. Remember, percentage is responsive friendly. Then the height should be inherit. So you should just take whatever height the parent has. So if it doesn't, so if there's no height, it will just become full width. So let's see how that behaves. So you notice the overflow has gone out. So what is causing the overflow? Is a previous code. I think this make it let's comment this out and make it 100%. So you notice the overflow has disappeared. So as a developer, I should know at each point in time what is causing your overflow and the theory behind how your code should work. So you notice the image is now flexible. So you notice there is no longer an overflow. So just like the slide, we used what? We use max width and percentage. So the next responsive design principle is to include system font as fallback when using web font or third-party font. So that means you have your custom font, then you use a website font. Now let's see how we can do that. So if I go to my browser, so I'll type Google fonts. So I'll look for a font that is stylish. So it can be any font, it can be Montserrat, it can be whatever font we want to add. So I just look for one that is somehow different from this, so that when we add it, we are going to know that we've added something. Okay, so let's browse a font. So let's look at this one. So I've clicked it. So I'm going to go to get font, get embedded code. Then you can add it as HTML or CSS. So I'm going to add now. If you add it as a HTML, then for all the page you can add it there, so you see the same thing. But you can just copy this. Since we are using external CSS, just copy that, come to my external CSS to the top or into paste that. Then the next thing I'll do is to come down and I will copy. So if I like, I just copy all of this, Ctrl C. So this cursive is the fallback, so in case there is no, in case as a result of slow internet or some other issue you couldn't fetch this, because this is a CDN, content delivery network, it's going to be showing the cursive first that almost looks like it. So let's paste it at this rem. So if I save that, go to my browser, so notice when I come to the, I think I have to refresh. So you notice that has taken place. So you see this text font size is relative to the element font size, which is nice. So that is how we make our web. So that is one of the responsive design principles, adding fallback to your custom fonts. So the next one is make your nested container flexible using Flex or Grid. Now we've now learned Flex, or we'll learn about that in our next week class. So what is nested container? A nested container is a tag such as div or section that contains tags that are related. So example, the nav tag containing links. So we'll have some nested container. So I can say this image tag is nested inside the flexible div tag, or the div tag that have a class of flexible. Then I can also say the responsive, or this div that has a class of responsive one has two nested container, which is the box and the rem. So you see, so those are what nested container is. So you said, so the rule there is to make them flexible so that they can also adjust. Is that they change from inline to block or from block to inline, so they should be flexible. So the next design principle is media queries. So we're going to learn more on this in the next part of this week class, which is on Sunday. So the next responsive web design principle is using the mobile first or the desktop first. So what is the advantage of using the mobile first or the desktop first? So the mobile first approach helps you in structuring the HTML in a better way, while the desktop first approach will help you with layout and spacing techniques. So when you're designing a website, you can choose to design the mobile first, then the desktop. You can choose to design the desktop first or the mobile, but each of them has their own advantage. So that the mobile will help you in structuring for your HTML code efficiency, then the desktop approach will help you in your spacing techniques. So that is it for our Sunday's class, for our Saturday's class. So in our Sunday's class, we're going to take all of this. So see you there.